You are about to listen to a free portion of The Young Turks. To podcast the complete show, sign up for membership at tytnetwork.com/membership.
Hey, power battle for you guys. But it is not rated, though.
Oh, no.
All right, Jimmy Dore is here as usual, and Maz Jobrani comes back. Maz, if you guys haven't seen him before, which you probably have, but on this show, only 3 Showtime specials, 2 TED Talks, LA Times bestselling book, I'm Not a Terrorist, but I've played one on TV. And now you got a new movie coming out, Jimmy Westwood, American Hero.
Jimmy Westwood, American Hero. I describe it as the Persian Pink Panther meets Borat. It's a story of an Iranian who wins the green card lottery to come to America, and he wants to come to America be a cop, like his favorite movie star Steve McQueen in the movie Bullet. But once he gets to L.A., the only job he can get is as a security guard in a Persian grocery store. And then somehow he ends up in a plot by a Republican warmonger who wants to start World War III, and he's got to save the world from there.
That sounds awesome. In fact, we got a trailer for you guys that we're going to play during the next break. So if you're watching live, stay right here. You're going to love that trailer. And I assume the Persian grocery store is in Westwood.
It's supposed to be in Westwood, but we actually used the one on Robertson called Elot Market, which has the best produce, by the way. It's on Robertson, and there. So,
okay.
Yeah, anyway.
So we got a big show for you guys today. In the second hour, Madonna pulls some girl's top off in a concert. Is that sexual harassment? Is it sexual assault? Is it totally fine?
Or is it just sexy?
Right, or kind of hot, right?
I think it's a sexual assault in Peppa. If you
Right. Well, it's a serious controversy. It's a controversy. We're going to handle it in the second hour. Okay, among many other things. Okay,
I never
now.
heard you say that before.
Yeah. I was watching the British series on Sigmund Freud. And
that's how they say it?
They say controversies. And I loved it. I can't get enough of it.
I'm going to say it.
Okay, so now we're going to start. In the first hour, we have a ton of news for you guys, including the boy. The boy is leaving politics. Okay, so we'll tell you about that in a little bit. And then the Trump supporters, the League of Shadows. There's a ton of stories. But first, we're going to start very serious because there is very serious and good news. So today, the person who appears to have planned the Paris attacks, Salah Abdeslam, has been caught. He's been apprehended in Belgium. Let me see here. I think this is appropriate.
We got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Okay. And in fact, that's literally what the Belgian Foreign Minister Theo Franken said. He made that same exact announcement. He said, we got him. Okay. And unfortunately, he was not caught for about 4 months, but luckily he had not been able to get out of the area, and he was caught in Molenbeek neighborhood of Brussels, which some say is a hotbed for Islamic jihadism, and his brothers are from there, and one of the brothers, Ibrahim Abdeslam, was one of the attackers and had killed himself with a suicide vest in front of a cafe in Paris. And, of course, the Paris attacks, 130 people had died. So this is great to have caught one of the guys who was involved in it. It's great for a number of reasons. Justice, obviously. And then also he might know about how they plan operations in Europe. And he might know how they get people in from Iraq and Syria. And he was wounded in the battle to apprehend him. But he has not been killed. So that's great news because we can get intelligence from him. So the European authorities are obviously all over that right now. France, Belgium, and the whole world celebrating this, that we have brought this guy to justice. 4 other people were also arrested, and this is all happening today. So great news. Oh, and one more thing about this guy, and this is my favorite part. They thought that there might have been an 8th attacker, and they think that it might be him. So not that he was just involved in the planning, and he was. He had gotten them hotel rooms, cars, if the authorities are right? But there was a suicide vest left that was not used. So it appears that this guy was like, yeah, guys, let's go in. we're going to kill him. We're going to do the suicide vest. And okay, you go get him. And at the last second, he's like, I don't think so. And the reason I love that is because it's so indicative of the people who push others into this extremism, right? Like anyone who's asked to be a suicide bomber should always say the sentence, you first, right?
Yeah.
But they don't. They do it last, right? And then while no one's looking, the guy and his brother went and died too, right?
Yeah.
And they killed all those people, but he snuck out in the middle of the night. Always the planner, right? No, not the guy who's actually going to do it. So either way, now he's been brought to justice. My guess is he's going to face a long time in prison. So great news.
He did a exit stage left and he took off, right?
Yeah,
like the pink what was it the pink lion and the Yogi Bear, what was the name? Platypus. What was his name? You know what I'm talking about?
That's way too long ago, man. You're asking me to go back 30 years.
Heavens to Murgatroyd. Heavens to Murgatroyd. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. That's what he did.
I remember it. I just didn't remember his name.
Took off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's first of all, for me, total side note, it was interesting to read about it and learn that the Prime Minister of Belgium is named Charles Michel. Because I always say, Americans, we don't know who is leading any other country. So it's always nice to read an article and be like, oh, okay, Charles Michel.
Yeah.
I'll throw that into a conversation tomorrow.
The last leader I remember of France was Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
Could you have named one leader of Belgium before this?
Not Belgium, no.
No. Okay.
No, never.
No. I couldn't even, no.
Belgium is a weird place for all this to be going down because for the longest time, the number one thing I knew about Belgium was that they would be upset about the fact that French fries are actually Belgian. Mm-hmm. That was about, and I was thought, they're the fun, friendly, international place that's complaining about French fries, and now they got sleeper cells.
Don't tell me the Danish is also Belgian.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I knew a black guy from Belgium, and he used to call himself Belgium chocolate.
Yeah.
It's a true story.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's not.
I'm not making that up.
Really? It's true?
Was he a stripper?
He was a comic.
Okay. That makes more sense. Okay. All right, so we're obviously in a good mood because the guy got caught. So that's great news. Obviously, the somber part of this is the original acts of terrorism. I wanted to add one more thing about that, though. There was a set of bombings in Ankara recently, and not a lot of press coverage, but including us. We didn't cover it either when it happened. And we should be just as excited if those people are ever caught. We should be just as animated about trying to catch them. Ankara is a capital like any other European capital, and it's not in a war-torn country. You know, people get confused. Turkey is both Mediterranean and Middle Eastern, so they think like, oh, I don't know, there's a lot of bombings there, right? No, normally there isn't. And so many people killed in all three of those bombings, over 30 in several of them, and on a bus. And if it happened in Paris, we'd all say, I am Paris. If it happened in Tel Aviv, we would cover it as well we should. If it happened in San Bernardino, we'd cover it a lot. And if it happens in Ankara, I think people rightfully say, hey, how about us, right? And so the whole world should have each other's back. So let's go get the guys who did it in Ankara now. And obviously, if it was a simple answer, we knew exactly who it was, we'd already gotten them. But some solidarity throughout the world here. So everybody's celebrating Paris today. But let's go get the sons of bitches who did it to Ankara as well.
Is Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, are they calling for a ban from immigration from Belgium? Was that part of one of the countries that they wanted to ban immigration?
They definitely should.
I mean, that's where that
makes sense. That's how that mind works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, don't get him started.
Yeah,
right?
Here he comes.
Like, you think Cruz won't?
No, I think he will.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting to me too is the fact that this Molenbeek neighborhood, they were saying it's impoverished and that a lot of these guys are radicalized in jail. So it's a little intimidating about how do we stop this is the bigger question, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just, I mean, I continue to point out that these guys are criminals. You know, I hate it when they say right away, they go, no Muslims coming in. It's like, well, what the hell does that mean? These guys are actual criminals. It takes a criminal mind. Some Muslims might not like some of the foreign U.S. policy. They might be anti-Israel, whatever it is. But very few would take up arms and go do what these guys are doing. They're criminals. And so when they caught him today, and you find out that these guys have all served some terms. They used to be, they did some theft and other stuff. They're criminals. So it's nice to be reminded of that as well.
I mean, isn't that funny that we don't have a ban on criminals coming into the country? but we're considering a ban on Muslims.
Well,
wouldn't you think that we'd be better off targeting the people who are already proven to have broken the laws?
If they ban criminals coming to the country, they would have to ban a lot of bankers.
That's a problem.
That's hard.
Huh?
You know?
And one more thing about this. To Maz's point there, if they came out of Syria originally, and these, by the way, they were also French citizens, right? They happened to be in Belgium at the time, but they were French citizens. If they were Syrian citizens and they came out of Syria, our answer would be, let's bomb them, right?
Yes.
Now, they came out of Belgium. Is anyone proposing to bomb Belgium? Now, you say, well, that's preposterous. That's absurd, right? Wait. Why is it absurd in Belgium and it's not absurd in Syria? But there's civilians in Belgium. There's also civilians in Syria. But the civilians in Belgium are us. There you have it. Right? If it doesn't make sense in Belgium, it doesn't make sense in Syria.
Well, that's what was frustrating watching some of these Republican debates. They were all trying to out-tough each other on terrorism. And it was the whole Ted Cruz saying, we're going to carpet bomb them. And I'm going, what the hell are you talking about? And people were just watching these guys rah-rah cowboy it up. And no one is saying, how do you do a surgical strike? How are you going to hit these? How do you have a bomb that can smell terrorist BO or something? What is it? What is the strategy?
They have bombs with hypodermic needles on the tips of them. So they don't hit anybody else except that one little person that they're going after. No, but the carpet bombing, you know, we talked about on the show, they would get together for the Republican debates and then they would try to out-war crime each other because that's what that is. And then Trump would say, we're going to do more than waterboard. And Ted's like, we're going to carpet bomb. We're like, hey, these are all war crimes.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about. And then I remember Hugh Hewitt asked Ben Carson about, are you going to do this kind of stuff? Kill kids? And he's like, well, you know, when I tell a kid I'm going to do surgery on his brain, he's not happy at first, but then he is afterwards. Yeah. So they're not going to be happy when you start bombing, but afterwards, when they're all dead, they will be. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny to watch them all try to out-war crime each other, except when the terrorists come from Belgium. Isn't that something?
Yeah, and they're almost literally saying, kill them all, let God sort them out, right?
Yeah.
And to a Republican voter, that
probably
probably sounds appealing, right? Okay, so let's move forward and let's go to some domestic news. Okay. We've got an interesting contrast here between President Obama and Bernie Sanders, and it's highlighted by their approach to many different things, and it's in the news, all in the news today, so I thought it was a good moment here to show you guys the difference. So, first off, President Obama was in talking to Democratic donors, and he acknowledged that, come on, let's keep it real, he thinks Hillary Clinton should be the nominee. He's always thought that. He said it in very clear ways in the past, publicly, by saying things like, well, we should have someone with a lot of experience in foreign policy who's going to take things gradually and be pragmatic. Okay, I'm like, yeah.
What does he mean?
Yeah, it's not hard to discern what you're trying to say.
He's just throwing a she. She should be very experienced.
Exactly, right.
Who's the she, you think?
So, but the Hill reporting today, Obama acknowledged to the donors that Clinton suffers from a perceived lack of authenticity, and I love this part, but called it an overrated political virtue, the report said. That authenticity is an overrated political virtue.
Why is it overrated, Cenk? Do you know why he says it's overrated?
Because he doesn't have it, so he thinks, oh, it's not that big a deal.
Not only that, but because they went up against another politician who they considered to be authentic, George Bush, and people hated him. So it does that. That's what I heard, right? So because people thought he was authentic, don't worry about it.
So that's of course preposterous, and especially for younger voters, authenticity matters a tremendous amount. That's why Bernie Sanders has more young voters than Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump combined. So, but it gives you a mindset into Barack Obama. That's why we wanted to share it with you. And when asked, hey, it seems like he's kind of supporting Hillary Clinton here, Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, said, now, we need to be mindful of the fact that our success in November in electing a Democratic president is dependent on the commitment and ability of the Democratic Party to come together behind our nominee. In other words, Bernie, get out, get out, get out. Okay? So, again, these tea leaves are not overly complicated. They're not that hard to read. We're not, breaking any news here. So now, they're going to ask Bernie Sanders about that. Hey, should you get out of the race now? Here's his answer.
The bottom line is that when only half of the American people have participated in the political process, when some of the largest states in this country, people in those states have not yet been able to voice their opinion on who should be the Democratic nominee, I think it's absurd for anybody to suggest that those people not have a right to cast a vote.
Okay, so he's not buying it. He's saying half the people haven't voted yet. I'm going to stay in.
And he's correct.
That is technically correct. That's right.
That's every way possible correct.
Yes, that's also literally correct and correct. Okay. So now, here's the interesting part of that interview. Rachel Maddow asks him, hey, how about Merrick Garland, who's a center-right Supreme Court nominee? She doesn't frame it that way, right? But we know that he is, and so that's kind of an issue. We have a Democratic president who has picked a guy who we presume, is pro-choice, has some socially liberal positions, has ruled against, out-of-control guns everywhere before. So, okay, the NRA's pissed at him. Good. But is very pro-corporate, very tough on crime, and has voted in speech now to have more money in politics, unlimited money in politics, okay? So that's, to me, obviously devastating. But now Bernie Sanders is in a bind because, remember, he's in a Democratic primary. He can't talk negatively against President Obama or his pick. Otherwise, people aren't going to be happy with that. Hillary Clinton keeps using that in the debates, like, are you with President Obama? You're not with President Obama, are you? I'm with President Obama. So what's Bernie going to do? Is he going to be a politician here and try to wiggle out of it? Let's watch.
Would you ask President Obama to withdraw that nomination in the lame duck so you could name your own nominee?
Yes, I would. And I think I'm 100% prepared to support Garland. I think he's clearly very knowledgeable and can serve ably on the Supreme Court. But between you and me, I think there are some more progressive judges out there. I have said over and over again that I do have a litmus test for a Supreme Court justice. And that litmus test is that justice must be loud and clear in telling us that he or she will vote to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. I am very worried about the future of American democracy and about the ability of billionaires to buy elections. That is my litmus test, and that's what I would insist on.
Boy, right there is an enormous difference between Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama. Barack Obama would never say, I have a litmus test, right? That's impolitic. That's in Washington, that's frowned upon, right? And he comes out and goes, goddamn right I got a litmus test. And then when I was first watching it, I was on pins and needles, right? Is it going to be Citizens United? Is he going to mention something else? And he's like, Citizens United. And this guy's most troublesome part is that he appears to agree with Citizens United. Now, I want to be fair. A lot of people say, no, he voted that way because he's in a lower court and he had to abide by the precedent of Citizens United, so we don't know what his real position is. Now, that's partly true, partly an excuse. There are many judges in the lower courts who go, no, speech now is different than Citizens United. Let me show you why I think this is a bad idea, or ruled the other way. He didn't. He was like, here, Citizens United it is. And speech now actually amplified more money in politics, and he voted in that direction. So Bernie says, hell no, I'm going to take him down, and I'm going to put a real liberal in.
Well, there's a couple of strategic things here. First of all, what's great about him saying that, hopefully it gives the Republicans right now a second thought of thinking, wait a minute, maybe we don't block, because if Bernie wins, then we're even further screwed than we're trying to be. So that's a great strategy on just him speaking his mind is great for the overall cause, I think, for getting a judge from the left in. But secondly, what you were saying about Barack, I think, it's hard. They've straight up said they're not going to prove anybody, he says. So he has to kind of, we've seen it, he has to play this game right now. It's hard for him to say, I have a litmus test, because they've already said we're going to block it. So I don't necessarily take anything away from Barack for proposing this judge right now. And I think it's great what Bernie did, and that speaks to what you guys were saying. I mean, he speaks from the heart. That's why he's authentic, and that's why people like him. So overall, I think it serves anyone on the left for him to talk like that. That's a great thing to say.
Let's read. So what we're worried about with this guy is that, first of all, Al Franken, who's been one of the quietest liberals in the Senate. I can't believe how quiet he's been. Yeah. Maybe he's doing some good work under the radar. I think he is. But he was being interviewed on PBS yesterday about this choice, and they said, are you upset that it's not a more liberal choice? And he said his advice to President Obama was that when he saw who his nomination was, Merrick, he said, yeah, we want 9 more people just like this. That's what the American people would say if they saw him. We want 9 people just like this on the court. That was Al Franken's logic, which I've never heard that kind of an argument before. And I was just thinking, really? That's what we need? 9 60-something-year-old white guys from Harvard on the frickin' Supreme Court? I don't think so. Maybe we need maybe a black woman progressive. Maybe we need some Hispanics. Maybe we need a Jew on there. Who knows? 9 60-year-old white guys from Harvard? I don't think that's what we need on the Supreme Court, okay? Let me just say, this also...
By the way, Merrick Garland, I think, is Jewish. Which I didn't know, but the commenters went nuts about it. So, although
that's good. That helps then.
It could be a young black woman too. I've heard rumors.
I've heard the same thing.
I have not seen the long form birth certificate, just so you know.
As long as you're not from Belgium.
As long as you're not from Belgium, yeah.
But this follows we're replacing Antonin Scalia, one of the farthest right-wing ideologue racists in the history of the Supreme Court, right? And remember, Scalia died at a ranch of a Texas millionaire who had cases in front of the Supreme Court. Wow. So now we're going to appoint another guy who apparently doesn't seem to have a problem with that kind of stuff, which is horrible. It's nice that Barack Obama started his negotiation from the middle of the Republicans' position already. Because Orrin Hatch said earlier this week, hey, I'd like, if he appointed Merrick, we'd have no problem. Barack Obama like, sure, I'll give it to you. Then Orrin Hatch is like, nope. Not going to do it. It's like Charlie Brown taking the ball away. He'll never, ever, ever learn that they're going to do this to you over and over and over. So you might as well start your negotiation from a liberal point of view, but that's not how Barack Obama plays it, because him and Hillary Clinton have this sickness that they want to be liked by the people who hate them.
Okay, well, let me disagree on a couple of quick grounds.
No, just move on.
So, number one, it's not that they want to be liked by the people who hate them. It's that they want to be liked by Washington, including their friends, the people that they're surrounded with in that bubble, right? And also their benefactors, right? And their benefactors, like guys like Garland, who have a really strong pro-corporate position, right? So we keep misjudging Obama in thinking, golly gee, he's playing it all wrong. If he'd played it right, he'd be a better progressive. But that's what we got to get through our head. I mean, look, I think that he's not really a progressive. He's a corporatist, right? He's a corporatist who's liberal on social issues. I'm not saying like he's, no, he's against gay marriage, although he was for a long time. Okay, but mainly that's what defines him is he's pro-corporatist. That's how he won, and that's what's so he picked the most pro-corporatist judge he can find. And everybody in Washington thinks, bravo, bravo. And all the Democratic groups and so-called progressive groups are supporting him. I didn't know about Al Franken, although I'm not surprised. Now, nobody's going to talk me out of being disappointed with Al Franken, right? So, I mean, but to be fair to President Obama, let me disagree in the other way. So he's thinking, I'm not just doing this for the Supreme Court. Since I'm making such a strong case to the American people in his mind, and the Republicans are being so obstinate, as you pointed out, Jimmy, well, I'm going to defeat a couple of their senators. I mean, isn't that the hardball you wanted me to play, right? You wanted me to make sure that, hey, I'm going to play realpolitik here. I'm going to make sure a bunch of the Republican senators lose, and we're going to be on better footing. Now, if he did all of that, and then Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton wins, and then he goes, psych, now I'm taking the ball away, okay? And I'm going to put in a liberal nominee, or Hillary Clinton is going to put in a liberal nominee, well, then I would say, okay, kind of well played. But my guess is he won't. And during the lame duck session, they'll confirm Garland. And then one day he'll vote in favor of Citizens United. And everybody will act surprised, even though he's already voted that way.
But listen, I agree with what you were saying, and I don't think that they're doing this to be liked. I think it's strategic. What you said is right. It will help by putting this guy up front. If they still don't approve him, then it makes them look like jackasses, and it hurts the Republicans in the long run. And listen, I would love to have a judge as well who is against Citizens United, a judge who is very progressive, a judge who's super liberal in every which way. But we all know that's not going to happen right now. These guys have straight up come out and said they're not going to do it. So what else? I mean, if I'm not a chess player and I'm not a political strategist, but what other move can you make? You got to look at your options and go, okay, this is the best choice I can make right now to play against the way they're playing with me right now.
Luckily, I am a political strategist,
There you
or
go.
at least I play one online. So, Maz, here's my point. I would put the most liberal justice up right now, and for two reasons. One, I'd say, you know why I put the most liberal justice up? Because that is what the American people elected me to do. They voted for me. They knew that, everybody, Fox News, et cetera, calls me a Marxist, right? They know how liberal I am, right? And they voted for me so that I could do exactly this. And I'm picking the most liberal justice because that's the best justice. And explain to the American people why liberal is an awesome thing. Not a thing you should run from. So look at the framing. You see what I'm saying? So when he frames Merrick Garland, who's a little center-right, as the ideal candidate, then you think, I guess the ideal position is center-right. Okay? I mean, again, center, not like way right, and he's liberal on some of the social issues. If you frame it as being liberal is the best position, well, you're going to win in the long run, even if you lose this short-term fight, right? But they never operate from that mindset. Hey, if we argue for a position like the Republicans do, where they say being the most conservative is the best thing, right? And then second of all, what might happen is you might, and I don't know that I'd like this, but you might actually win on Merrick Garland if you put up a huge liberal first.
Right.
And they went, no, and they vote him down, and then you go, all right, Merrick Garland, and if you say no to this, Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a much better short-term strategy if you wanted Garland on the bench.
It just seems to me, and I think you're both making good points, but let's remember that we're replacing Antonin Scalia, right? So the equivalent to Antonin Scalia, one does not exist on the left, right? It would be like if Barack Obama appointed Cornel West to the Supreme Court,
right?
But that's not even close to it, right?
By the way, that would be
awesome.
Yeah.
Brother West on the court.
That's what Fox News thought. That's what they told everybody he was going to do stuff like that. He never did stuff like that.
Can you imagine he goes further? He puts Reverend Jeremiah Wright on this.
Finally.
He's like, oh, you guys were right. Psych.
The video paid off.
But remember, that is the equivalent. And it just seems like, we've talked about this on the show before, but when Republicans win, they have a mandate, right? Well, you got to give them this choice. You got to give them Scalia. You got to give them Rehnquist. You got to give them Judge Thomas. You got to give them all these. You got to give them Alito because they won. They won. So, but when Democrats win, they're like, well, it's time for the Democrats to compromise and reach across the aisle. It's time that they start making some compromises and listen to the Republicans and come together. And they never. But when the Republicans took over the House and the Senate, there was no talk of, hey, it's time for the Republicans to negotiate with Barack Obama. That fucking never happened. Yeah. It was never, hey, let's reach some compromises with Barack Obama now because we run. No, I'm just saying it would be nice. It would be nice if when we actually elect what we consider to be a liberal, he actually appoints liberal people and they do liberal things. It would be nice just to see how stuff like that worked out.
So that brings me to my last point about Bernie Sanders. So you know that if you elect Bernie Sanders, he ain't going to pick Garland. He just told you, I'm not going to pick Garland. I'm going to pick somebody way to the left, okay? And I'm going to be proud of that pick.
Fidel Castro, maybe.
And by the way, there are a great number of liberal justices in this country. Let alone, Larry Lessig is not that liberal, the totality of his policy positions. But he's a Harvard Law professor, incredibly well respected, and is definitely against Citizens United. And he used to clerk for Scalia, right? So, how perfect a pick would that be? You wanted me to replace Scalia? I'm replacing him with his clerk, right? And you know what percentage of the country is against Citizens United? Over 70%, right? And so about 3/4 of the country says that particular decision, I hate it, okay? We're split on Roe v. Wade. We're split on everything else. That's the one decision that the American people hate. So if you plant a flag and you go, okay, this guy's against Citizens United, you know what you're going to get on your side? Republicans. Republican voters hate Citizens United. But they never think that way. Now, Bernie Sanders has a different approach. Now, I'm going to use a strange example here, but you're going to see why. He's talking about Sheriff Joe Arpaio. They're campaigning in Arizona. His wife, Jane Sanders, Bernie Sanders' wife, was in a tent city. It's an outdoor jail in Maricopa County on Wednesday. And Sheriff Joe happened to be giving a press conference, and then he came and confronted her. So now she asked him about different things. She criticized the outdoor jail. and she said, what about your racial profiling? And then when she said that, he walked away. Interesting. So Bernie Sanders is going to talk about that here.
She asked him about racial profiling, and he didn't have an answer. She asked him about the conditions in Tent City and the other abuses that he has perpetuated, and he didn't have an answer. And you know what? He cannot have an answer because what he is doing is un-American and uncivilized.
Okay, you're beginning to get a sense of, the difference. Obama would never, Sheriff Joe is a disgusting human being. He wouldn't investigate cases of rape in Latino communities where he's the sheriff because he's like, well, you know, some of them are undocumented, and if they're going to be against me, I'm not going to go and police that neighborhood. He's a filthy guy. He's a terrible, terrible human being. But Obama would never call him uncivilized, would never call him un-American. But wait till you get a load of the last comment. Watch this.
Before, it is easy for bullies like Sheriff Arpaio to pick on people who have no power. If I'm elected president, the President of the United States does have the power. Watch out, Joe.
I'm the danger!
But what would he do, though? That's my question. I mean, as much as I love Bernie and what he just said, I just wonder, it was a little bit of a Trump moment in saying, like, I'm going to get you. But what does the president, how does the president go after sheriff?
Well, actually, they already are. So you can actually make it a point in the opposite direction, which is that, well, the federal authorities under Obama are already investigating Sheriff Joe. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's because of how discriminatory he's being, and that's an issue for the federal authorities if a local authority is violating civil rights laws, right?
Right.
So to be fair to Obama, apparently he is doing something about Sheriff Joe. But there is, I think, value, and I think you saw it in Jimmy's reaction, to finally a liberal saying, watch out, Joe. You're not coming for us, I'm coming for you. Right.
You know, every time I go to these Republican events and Ted Cruz town halls, and and you hear them all say about the first thing they say, they wear T-shirts that say Hillary should be in jail, put him in jail. So they always talk tough, always. And liberals, again, it's why they have the reputation for being spineless and wimpy, because they never say stuff like that. Even though everyone knows it's the truth, they won't say it. And when a guy comes along and actually states a plain truth, it makes people rise to their feet. It's like, finally, someone's speaking truth to power inside of our political system, and he's not bought, and it just energizes people because it's the idea of what America's all about, a government of the people, someone who's responsible to the people and not their donors and not afraid of people who are anti-American. That's why he's still such passion in people, because he's exactly what America's about.
You know what, my only, and we talked about this earlier, like the reason that I support Hillary is because I love everything that Bernie says. But I go back to the election with John Kerry, where they started using the word liberal as a derogatory term. And I remember thinking to myself, what's wrong? Liberal people care for other people, and they want, they want to help people that are poor, help the poor. What's wrong with being liberal? But they made that word liberal they basically were saying communist. Yeah. And it's amazing how what you just said, the Republicans are very good at mobilizing their constituents, and a lot of that goes to Christianity and if this person wins, they're godless and
they're good on message.
They're good on message, and so they mobilize, and then they make a guy like John Kerry, who was a war hero. They make him come out as this pussy, and then the damage is done by the time they come back and go, no, he was not, he was on the boat and all this stuff. Damage is done. So that's my biggest worry with Bernie, is that I feel that they can mobilize harder against him than they can against Hillary. That's my biggest worry.
If I that's the worry I get from everybody. But I'll tell you, the difference is what happens to the country since 2000. The country was much more conservative in 2000, especially the Democratic Party. It has switched. It used to be 29% of Democrats in 2000 considered themselves liberal. Now it's up to 46%. So that's a big jump. So there's a lot more people who aren't afraid of that word anymore. I think because, Barack Obama, they called him a liberal for 8 years. Everybody's like, everything's pretty good. We got health care, so I'm not so afraid of this liberal. And plus...
By the way, that's an argument a little bit for Barack Obama and his style. to have taken the punch out of the word liberal and said, see, it's totally fine.
And also, everyone has one of these. So you can look up, what does it mean? What is a liberal? What is a socialist? What is a democratic socialist? And people know. That's why I think people under 40 are going for Bernie like crazy, and the people older aren't, because they really don't know about this
Listen,
yet.
I agree with you 100%, but what scares me is seeing these people, the Trump supporters, and going, where did these people come from? And they just keep coming. And it's overwhelming.
Out of the woodwork, right?
Out of the woodwork. And then you go, wait a minute, because I travel San Francisco, LA, New York, San Francisco, major cities. I run into mostly people that might be
like-minded?
Left-minded, or they might be fiscal conservatives. But to see these other people, the guy who elbowed that guy at the rally, where the hell did that 76-year-old dude wearing a cowboy hat come from? They're out there.
Yeah, well, a lot of us don't see them because we live in the big cities. I had a friend who's Jewish, lives in West Virginia. His next-door neighbor proudly has a Nazi flag, a swastika, in his door. And I'm like, Jesus, why aren't you doing anything about that? He's like, what the fuck am I going to do? He's like, I'm outnumbered. I'm a little Jewish guy. He's a giant, redneck in West Virginia with a fucking swastika. And this neighborhood's not on my side, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the America we don't often see.
Yeah.
And don't kid yourself. There's lots of racism in big cities. Lots and lots of racism in big cities. I come from Chicago. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Lots of racism in Chicago, still to this day, although we see the police department, right? We see what happens with that kind of stuff. So it's just they hide it more in the cities, right? And I hear the N-word a lot when I go back to Chicago.
Yeah. So we're nowhere near finished, obviously, in battling that. And boy, is Trump a great example, and his supporters a great example of how far we still have left to go. Okay, speaking of which, we got to take a break here. We're going to show you Maz's new movie, a trailer for it, during the break, so stay right here. And then when we come back, if you thought Wall Street didn't like Bernie Sanders, wait till you get a load of what they think about Elizabeth Warren. And then The Boy is out. I will explain. All right. Back on the Young Turks. Jimmy Dore, Hannah Cranston.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Check out youtube.com/think tank.
Cenk, through the miracle, the magic of technology, during the first hour of the show, I was also doing a radio show in Los Angeles on 90.7 FM, which just got done. And now, through the magic of the internet, I'm here with you, but I'm also doing clips at youtube.com/The Jimmy Dore Show as we speak right now. It's magic. Don't try to understand it.
That is slightly magical.
It is magical.
Jimmy's everywhere.
I'm everywhere. You can't. Guess who knocks? Me.
All right. Nate Sanchez writes in, if you find yourself on the side of loan sharks, there's a good chance that you are Darth Vader. Connor writes in, Jimmy's Bernie impression is one of the best things to come out of this election so far.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Fucking appreciate it. It's very nice. You know who doesn't appreciate it? Millionaires and billionaires do not appreciate.
That's awesome. Raver Madness writes in, Rubio can't leave. There's still so many no-shoes to dispel. Raver, nice joke, man. Like that a lot. Members of the day are Jane Noka, member number 1153, and Paul Michael Bailey, member number 1154. Okay? You guys rock. And today's post game is, I believe on Fridays we do Dave, Malcolm, and Steve. I don't know if Malcolm was in. Okay. No, I don't know. All right. Anyway, one of those guys. And see, the good thing about the Friday post games is that they're maybe even more inappropriate than the post games we do. Because Dave will say things he's totally not supposed to say.
After yesterday, I don't know if I can believe that, but I'll take your word for it.
We did have a wild couple of days in the post games. TYTnetwork.com/join to find out. Yesterday, Grace was telling us if it's okay for women to lie to other women to seduce them.
First of all, that is totally sexy. Women lying to each other to get in their pants. That's awesome. Isn't it? It like makes you, I don't know, it does something to me.
Yeah, I hear. Don't lean into me while saying that. All right, well, you find all that out if you're a member. TYTnetwork.com/show.
Yep.
All right, what's up, Hannah?
All right, let's do it. So during her concert in Australia, Madonna pulled a 17-year-old fan on stage with her and then proceeded to smack her ass and pull on her shirt, exposing her breast. Take a look.
She's the kind of girl you just want to slap on the and pull. Oh, and I'm sorry, sexual harassment. You can do the same to me. Good luck.
Okay, so the fan is Josephine Georgiou, who is a barista and aspiring model in Australia. And while many have taken to Twitter to express their criticism of Madonna's actions, calling it sexual harassment, disgusting, and also saying that if it was a male who did the same actions, that he would be prosecuted, the fan has released a statement saying that she defends the singer. She says, seriously, why would I sue Madonna for the best moment of my life? It was the best night. She was calling me a Victoria's Secret model the whole time I was on stage, which is so flattering. Only I get to decide if I'm humiliated or not. Why would people assume I'm humiliated by my own breast, nipple, or body? Her mom also put a Facebook post saying, Madonna just spanked my daughter. So proud. So just to give you guys some context for what happened here. So basically, somehow she switched tickets with somebody. She got upgraded, right? And so she got moved up forward, and she felt like Madonna and her made eye contact at some point during the concert, okay? And then she saw Madonna talking with one of the stage managers, and later, Jimmy's dying. Later, the stage manager approached her, I guess, and had her come up on stage, and they instructed her that Madonna would smack her on the ass. She was warned about that they would walk to the end of the runway on the stage, flip off the audience, and that would be the extent of it. She was wearing a leather bustier that apparently had nipple rings on it. Madonna pulled at it, and I guess she pulled a little too hard. No, not her nipple rings. Like the nipple rings were on the bustier. Pulled at it
I see.
and pulled a little too hard, exposing her breast.
Okay, so she wasn't supposed to do the wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah.
But she did
Wasn't
get
a Janet Jackson situation. It was an accident. Like this was an actual accident.
But she did get a warning she was going to get slapped in the ass.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally changes things.
That does change things, yes. I'm split on it because, like, everybody's having fun. Nobody disagreed, right? She was, Why?
Oh, you've changed, Cenk.
I know I have.
You have changed.
I have. In fact, I'm going to get into how I changed.
Yeah.
And what a bad man I used to be. Okay. On the other hand, that line about if it was a guy who did it to a girl.
Yeah.
It's pretty devastating. I mean, they're right. If, like, Kid Rock is up there and he's like, hey, what's up? And then slaps her ass and then rips her top off.
100%.
People are like, whoa.
Guess what, though,
Right.
Cenk? Here's the thing. It wasn't a guy.
I love that counterpoint, as if like, well, that's that.
That's it. Wait, if it was someone else doing things like that, it wasn't someone else. It was a woman.
But why is it? So why is it?
Because that totally changes it.
Why does it change?
Why?
Because she's a woman.
Right.
I don't know how.
Like,
do I have to explain this? I don't understand.
Kind of. So okay, wait. So what if it was a guy that came up and it's a guy performer, so same sex, just like Madonna and the girl, and he's like, yeah, and takes off his pants. Is that acceptable? And I lean in and I go, and he was a man.
It's different. It's all different. I mean, I'd have to think about that a little longer, but I know this. I mean, depending how far he pulled down his pants, I don't know how long I would have to think about it. But this is totally different. This is a woman who she already agreed to do something, by the way.
Something.
So she went, you can spank me on the ass. I'm kind of want to be a model. I'm wearing something. So she's part of the show. She's in the show.
Yeah, but Jimmy, you can't say just because somebody agrees to do one thing, if they go a little further, then it's still okay because they agreed to do the first part of that. Come on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, but I'm just saying it's not the same thing as if a guy did it or if Kid Rock did it.
But that's heteronormative because we don't know, sexual orientation isn't coming
into play. I don't know what
here.
that means, but I do know that this was a woman, and that's what makes it different.
You know what, Jimmy? You make a great argument there.
Okay.
Point, counterpoint. Okay. All right. So to how I've changed, I was at a Guns N' Roses concert when I was, in college, so a long, long time ago. And they would go to different women they'd just point the camera. Guns N' Roses didn't come out. They were like 8 hours late or whatever. Like, there's rock stars drive me crazy.
Yeah.
We were lucky though. There was this little known group that came out called Soundgarden, right? And we didn't know we at the time. And they're like, and it was around Christmas time, and they're like, this one goes out to a friend of ours that's got a birthday coming up. Jesus fucking Christ. We're like, oh shit, these guys are awesome. Right? So, and then they went to all the girls in the crowd, and they'd put the camera there until she showed her breasts. Okay? And they'd do it to one person after another. Now, one or two girls were like, no, and then they moved on. Okay? After a while, right? But everybody else showed their breasts, and everybody went wild. We didn't know if the tits were better or the Soundgarden was better, right?
I have a guess.
So now, Hannah, back in the day, nobody even thought twice about that. That was just cool. That was fun. Now, as the camera lingers there for too long, you're thinking...
I think that they're being, put under pressure, and it's this whole, power dynamic thing, and that's just how I think about these things. Yeah. And I think, like, she was pulled on stage. one, she's a minor. Mm-hmm. Two, she's flipping standing next to Madonna. So, of course, she's going to have, like, she's not going to be like, how dare you, Madge? Like, that's totally unacceptable. Of course not. Nobody would do that in front of thousands and thousands of people. And so now she's in this situation where she's like, no, flipping Madonna was complimenting me, and it was an accident. She pulled it down, whatever. It was funny. But she's young. She doesn't know. And, you don't know what she's going to feel like in 10 years down the road or whatever.
Well, so there's two different issues here. Number one is, was it some transgression, harassment, assault, whatever you want to call it, right, at that moment? But when you say you don't know how she's going to feel 10 years from now, that part I actually think is totally irrelevant. Like, she might feel bad about it, but I'm not... that we're done with this conversation. Because you can't come back 10 years later and say, okay, now I changed my mind. And now
I just mean because she's a minor. Do you know what I mean? So she might feel differently about because she's getting a lot of attention now, and she is an aspiring model, so she might feel different about the attention that it's garnering now than maybe if she was older. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, but again, the minor thing, it's the same thing happened to Akon, right? He did this Dirty Dancing with this girl that was at a club of people who were supposed to be above 21.
Yeah.
I don't know what the concert here situation is. It turned out she was 14, so... he got in a lot of trouble, et cetera. But he's like, how the hell was I supposed to know? Did Madonna know she was 17? I doubt it. So
and I think it was an accident. In fair of Madonna, for all fairness to her, I think it was an accident. But it reminds me of when Katy Perry had that fan come on stage, and the fan started kind of groping Katy Perry, but it was a girl, so everybody was fine with it. So there is a double standard, and it's not fair. Essentially, it's not fair.
I have a ruling.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, are there any differences between men and women?
Ever? Or in this case?
I'm asking, just in general, are there differences?
Yeah, of course there are differences.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then,
yes, Jimmy, yes. We have these things called penises.
Oh, I mean, are there differences also in the way men and women act in our culture, or do they act exactly the same?
No, Jimmy, I know they act differently, but if the girl was not cool with it in this particular case,
we would be defending the girl.
and in fact, there would have been legally no difference at all, right?
I don't know, but the woman, the fact that she's underage is what changes it. I didn't know that she was underage, so that does change it a lot, actually.
Okay.
If she
but
was,
but let's say she was 18
then
and
it's
she still had her breast exposed without her consent.
Well,
still not okay.
It's still an accident. They were kind of doing a sketch, right? So I'm going to spank you on the ass and then I'll tug at your bustier. Oh my God, your bustier. She didn't know that a bustier was. So
right, and I said it was an accident.
Yeah, so they're doing a sexy sketch. She was part of it. And then it was kind of an accident. That's different than Kid Rock. Get up, I want to grab your ass, or putting a camera on their tits until they show. I don't think Madonna actually knew that was going to happen, so that changes it also.
I agree. I think it was a complete accident. I think the issue here is, and I think it's been a little exemplified on this panel, is there is a fetishization of girl-on-girl action, right?
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying?
And so I think that makes these situations where that could be deemed sexual harassment, because we do live in a relatively heteronormative society, a little more hairy than we would if it was opposite sex.
The guys are the hairy ones. That's why we like the girl on girl.
So I think the only thing that and I don't want to make too much out of this, but I just, trying to advance political correctness, which I think we all political correct. But at the same time, when does political correctness like try to make us ignore who we are, right? Like we are different people. Men do have like. So am I not supposed to be turned on by two women?
You can be turned on by whatever you want, Jimmy.
No, I'm asking like.
No, but I'm with Jimmy on this one.
I mean, is that so? When you go, because then there's that actual that men fetishize. Yes, it's hot two hot women together. But so what I'm saying is does that politically incorrect for me to feel that way, attracted by that?
Can I try my hand at a ruling here? So to that specific question, it can't be wrong for us to be turned on by two women.
No, that's fine. I agree.
Because if it's wrong, sad day for you guys, because we are. Okay, so that's just, you can't get into my head. You're not allowed there. Okay, so that's just the way the world works. On the other hand, that doesn't allow you to exempt laws that are in place. Yeah. Just because I'm turned on by two women doesn't mean that Madonna can rip her shirt off.
Exactly.
Right? So now, but in this case, she didn't object, and it was a skit that went a little wrong, but she was fine with it. So there's actually, at the end of the day, no real issue because
except she's a minor.
That's the only
but
issue.
Again, like Madonna had no idea that she was a minor, and they didn't have sex.
It was an accident, but she doesn't get to say whether or not. Like just like if a 14-year-old had sex with a 30-year-old or something like that, the 14-year-old is if she goes, "Oh no, it's totally fine. I'm totally cool with it." We wouldn't be like,
right,
"Oh yeah, the 14-year-old says it's chill." So
no, but so that is statutory rape, and their consent is not relevant. Okay,
right,
and that is codified in the laws. Now I don't know what the laws are in Australia.
You're not allowed to touch another person without consent. So technically what Madonna did was illegal, but because the girl is not filing like some sort of complaint, the police say they're not going to pursue it.
Right, and she in this case they didn't have sex, so it's not statutory rape. It's not any of that. Now I don't know if you're going to dive into like, well, if she's technically a minor and we saw her breasts, is that child pornography and Madonna caused it? But
yeah, no,
come on.
Of course there has to be a line somewhere, but I think we just, like I was saying, I don't think I think there are laws that exist for a reason, and I don't think just because of gender or sexuality we get to, make pardons.
Yes, I agree with that part, and I also agree that this guy's way too heteronormative.
Agreed.
I agree.
All right, next.
Okay, on to a more serious story. A father in Herkimer County, New York, posed as a teenager online to lure his own daughter into a relationship and lure her into sending nude photos. Now, the man set up accounts with Instagram, AOL, and a texting service in September 2013 under a fake name and started chatting online with his daughter, pretending to be a 16-year-old boy. Now, they started calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend, even though they never met. The girl resisted his request to send him sexually explicit photos, but finally gave in. Now, 2 months later, in November, the girl told him she wanted to break up with him. Now, after the girl broke up with him, the girl received a text from the boy's account from someone claiming to be his mother. The text message said that the boy had committed suicide. Soon after that, the girl's father told the girl that the boyfriend had sent him the nude photos that she had sent her assumed boyfriend. And the father often referred to them and how much he liked them while he sexually abused the girl. Now, a year following this, the text that she got about the boyfriend's suicide, the girl did tell a school nurse that she was being sexually abused by her father. The 41-year-old man pleaded guilty in federal court today to 12 counts of enticing a child to produce child pornography and receiving and sending child porn. He's facing sexual abuse charges in Herkimer County Court, and he could face up to 250 years in prison.
Not enough.
Agreed.
Yeah. Not enough time for that guy.
So in the beginning of the story, as we're reading this, right?
Right.
I was thinking maybe what he's trying to do is teach her, hey, don't send nude pictures online. You see how easy it was for me to get your pictures? Don't do that. Yeah, now that's that's a terrible idea. Terrible idea because one, now they exist. Right. That's bad, and somebody else could get them, etc. Wow. Second of all, it's super creepy.
Right.
Not the right way to teach a lesson. But none of that matters because it turns out, no, he wasn't doing that. He just wanted to see his daughter naked, and this was his way of doing it. Man, there's some evil in the world.
There's some disconnects in people's brain. There's a disconnect. There's a nerve that didn't get connected. There's something wrong, right? You don't. You're not, what a lack of being able to empathize with someone, right? Your own daughter, you can't even put yourself in her position. So that's what a sociopath is, right?
Yeah, and he went through so much effort to traumatize her further.
Yeah.
Right? Like getting her to fall in love with the kid, that's so twisted to begin with. Then he says the person that she loves committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that's all to get her naked pictures so that he can sexually abuse her and then, oh my God.
Where's the mother?
I don't know. That part is not in the story. They're not releasing any names or any other real details, I think, to protect the girl's privacy, of course. But yeah, so they kind of go through some of the text messages that I didn't include, but he's just coercing her to send these photos. And then when she refuses, he threatens then to send them to her dad's. And so she actually sends them so that he won't send them to her dad. Little does she know that they're actually going to her dad. It's sad. It's disgusting.
God.
This poor girl is traumatized on so many levels,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, is going to have to go through so much therapy. But I think the only silver lining here is that she felt comfortable enough to tell a school nurse, and the dad will be facing time for this disgusting act that he's committed.
And now she'll I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I imagine she'll never feel safe for the rest of her life. She'll never really be able to trust someone for the rest of her life. And if she is, it'll take, massive amounts of therapy or what have you. But she's going to be shut down from this. She won't be able to have real connections with people. But I think because it just makes you go, stop. Especially if your own father did it. Oh my God.
So whenever someone violates your trust to this degree, it creates a situation that Jimmy's talking about. It's like PTSD of trust. And I've known people in a totally different context, not sexual, who have now trouble trusting people because their trust was so thoroughly violated, right? But when it's your own dad and it's sexual and all these things, how in the world is she going to learn to trust anyone else? And that's why guys like this that do this, right, or people like this, not only they violate, their daughter's trust in the worst possible way, but they actually kind of ruin it for all of society because it makes everybody that's heard the story, anybody that's experienced it in any way, the mom, the family members, the friends, just a little less trusting of all of humanity.
Yeah.
And it hurts us all in that way. But I do want to say one last thing. There's a lot of temptation to send the naked pictures. Because yes, oftentimes it's guys, not always, but almost always, that are pressuring. And by the way, we did a story about catfishing where a young guy was pretending to be a hot girl and getting pictures of guys in his high school, naked pictures, and then saying, I'll release these unless you do something with me, and he would get guys to do that, right? So don't send naked pictures. Once you send the naked picture, you're hooked, and then they can get you to do worse stuff. Don't send it.
You know what? I'm going to kind of shift what you're saying. Don't be dicks that ask for naked pictures, coerce people to take naked pictures, and then do disgusting things to people. If you want to send naked pictures and you have a relationship where you feel comfortable in sending those and you want to share your body in that way, I think that's okay. But I think saying that maybe you shouldn't send naked pictures because things like this can happen, I don't think that's fair.
Okay, I hear you. Don't send naked pictures. Because there's nothing we can do about the dicks. I'm not going to be able to talk the dicks out of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't talk.
Right, but for people who mean to do, and by the way, you might be in love today, but I don't know if you know this, people break up, right? And the person you thought that you loved might be a person who hates you the next day. It's happened before in humanity, right? So I'm just throwing a note of caution out there. You do whatever you want. It's a free country.
I used to have, before the internet, people still had naked pictures. It's weird. And I used to have several very attractive women I dated. I don't know, I had them up with naked pictures of them. They gave them to me, right? And I used to keep them. I used to have them even after we broke up and, throw them out.
Yeah.
And then I would have them and I would keep them together and I don't know where they are now.
Yeah.
I have no idea where they are.
I mean, there's that too. Even if it's a person who's well-intentioned, only meant to keep it to themselves and oops.
Yeah.
And now, that was in the old days. Now you got them on your computer. Somebody else comes on your computer.
Right. You take your computer to get fixed. The guys, they always look at your stuff when they take it to get fixed.
That's the first thing they're going to look at.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. Edwin comes and fixes my computer sometimes at home. First thing he looks at.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. We got to take a quick break here. Now, when we come back, more disaster stories. including an unbelievably racist football coach. And then did Mark Zuckerberg do something wrong? He definitely did something. Anyway, we will judge him when we return.